Come and sit near, the adventure is here, because it's reading with a ranger.
Hi, I'm Ranger Isaiah, and I work at Lincoln Home National Historic Site. Today, with Reading with a Ranger, we are going to read a story about Frederick Douglass. Now you may ask, what does Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln have in common? That's a great question. Probably one of the most important historical events in United States history. The United States Civil War, the war that was fought over slavery. Now Lincoln believed in equality for all, including African Americans. Now Douglass would eventually visit Mr. Lincoln in the White House in 1863 to discuss fair treatment for African American soldiers that were fighting for the Union cause. Now, Douglass, as a young man, worked very hard to read and write. Now, before we begin, there's a few words I want to explain in depth. These words are illegal, bondage, and alphabet. Illegal means breaking the law or breaking the rules. Bondage means you are controlled by someone or a slave to someone. Alphabet means symbols, characters, or signs that make up a language. Now, without further ado, here's our story. Bread for Words, a Frederick Douglass story, written by Shana Keller and Kayla Stark. I know where I was born, not when. It was Tuckahoe, Maryland. I lived free as a bird, near the bay in a small cabin with Grandma. There wasn't a whole lot to do inside our cramped cabin, so I called to the birds, the frogs, the cats, and the dogs. I chirped and barked and squabbled until even the animals couldn't tell if I was one of their own. One day, Grandma told me I would have to leave. Why? I asked. We belong to Old Master, she said. We are slaves. What does that mean? I thought I belonged to Grandma. They won't teach you a thing but to work, and you won't have a choice. But why am I a slave? I did not want to be told when to work, where to work, how to work, and not have a choice. Grandma was silent on the day we left the cabin early in the morning. We walked 12 long miles on a day swamped with heat and bugs to a place we called the Great House Farm. When we arrived, children ran out to see me. They surrounded me, laughing and teasing me so. Then Grandma left without saying goodbye. I met my brothers and sisters at the great house, but I didn't know them well. Without Grandma, I was too sad to play. Then I met Daniel. He lived in the great house. We hunted and hiked and fished together. Daniel occasionally shared his cakes with me. He showed me the great house and all the grand rooms inside, including his. Except for the color of our skin, it was hard to know why we were so different. Daniel was not a slave. He wasn't born into it. At night, Daniel slept in a warm bed with a full belly. I had no bed. On the coldest night, I slept with a bag used to carry corn. It wasn't long enough to cover my feet, so I put it over my head. I didn't have enough to eat or enough clothes to stay warm. I didn't even know my age, but Daniel knew his. When his tutor came, he taught Daniel to read and write and speak. I wanted to learn too, but Grandma was right. They didn't give me a choice. I was not old enough to work in the field. I was told to clear the yards, keep the birds out of the garden, and drive the cows. No matter how hard I wanted to learn to read, write, they wouldn't give me a chance to do these things. It was illegal, they said, unlawful, unsafe. Why? I walked like them. I talked like them. I walked and talked exactly like them. I showed them I could. Is that why I was sent to Baltimore, far away from my brothers and sisters? I left the plantation the same way my grandma did, without saying goodbye. In Baltimore, I lived with Mr. Hugh Alt, kin to Old Master, and his wife, Miss Sophia. I was told to take care of little Thomas, their young son. City life was different from plantation life. There was plenty of food for me to eat and warm clothes to wear. At night, I now had a good straw bed with covers. Miss Sophia was first kind to me. She knew as little of slavery as I did. When she read to Thomas from the Bible, I followed along. To my surprise, she taught me what no one else would, my ABCs. She taught me how to spell next. I felt proud to know 3- and 4-letter words. She was proud of me too. But when Mr. Alt saw what I could do, anger caught a hold of him. He should know nothing but to do as he is told, he said. If you teach Freddie how to read, there will be no keeping him. He forbade Miss Sophia from teaching me. From that moment, I understood the pathway from slavery to freedom. If I learned to read, I would loosen the chains of bondage. I couldn't give up. But how would I learn now that I had lost my teacher? As Thomas grew older, I was told to carry his books and walk him to school. An idea came to me. I met a lot of hungry boys on the streets. The boys were between 9 and 12 years old. Was I as old as them? I remember how I hated the pinches of hunger in my belly. This time, my hunger was different from theirs. When I was sent on errands, I always took my book with me, and I took extra bread. When I saw the boys on the street, I offered them bread for words. It worked. With their help, at different times and in different places, I finally learned how to read. But to break from slavery, I knew I had to learn how to write next. A new idea came to me in the shipyard. I watched the ship carpenters carve letters into pieces of wood to show which part of the ship it would be used for. I soon learned the names of these letters. They carved L for larboard, or left side, F for forward, S for starboard, the right side, and A for aft, the stern. With a lump of chalk, I wrote on fences, brick walls, and pavement. I copied these 4 letters until I could write them from memory. L, F, S, A. To learn the rest of the alphabet, I challenged those boys on the streets who I knew could write. I said I could write as well as them. They didn't believe me. I carefully wrote the letters I had practiced. Beat that. Unable to resist my game, they wrote the letters they knew. I paid close attention to the ones I didn't. At home, when Thomas finished his copybooks, they were set aside and forgotten. I used the books to trace the letters again and again, until I could make them without looking at the books. Nearly 7 years, I finally succeeded in learning how to read and write. Mr. Alt was right. There would be no keeping me. My chains had been broken. The end. Now in 1859, Abraham Lincoln said, "Free labor has the inspiration of hope. Pure slavery has no hope." Now Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass wanted equality and liberty for all. And Frederick Douglass would work over 50 years of his life to help gain equality for African Americans. What's been something that you have worked hard at? I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Reading with a Ranger. As always, I'm Ranger Isaiah, and we'll see you next time.